In the gaslit fog of 19th century San Francisco, a peculiar monarch held court not in a palace, but on the cobblestone streets. He was Joshua Abraham Norton, a man who, by his own decree, was the first and only emperor of the United States. His uniform, a mismatched collection of military garb, was his crown and scepter, instantly recognizable to all who saw him. He carried a walking stick or a ceremonial saber, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of his self-proclaimed authority. Every day, he would patrol his imperial domain, inspecting the city's progress and the condition of his subjects with utmost seriousness. The citizens of San Francisco didn't mock him. Instead, they embraced his fantasy, bowing and curtsying as he passed. He was a living landmark, a piece of the city's soul. But how did this respected businessman become America's only emperor? His story begins not with a crown, but with a catastrophic financial gamble and a shipload of Peruvian rice. Before the empire, there was a man named Joshua Norton, a shrewd merchant with a promising future in the booming gold rush city. He had arrived with a small fortune and quickly multiplied it, earning a reputation as a savvy and respected businessman. In the early 1850s, Norton was a titan of commerce. His office overlooked the busy harbor, the heart of the city's wealth. He dealt in real estate and commodities, his ventures seemingly blessed with a golden touch, his name synonymous with success. Then came the opportunity that promised to be his greatest triumph, a scheme to corner the city's rice market. Hearing of a famine in China, San Francisco's rice supply dwindled and prices skyrocketed. Norton saw his chance to make a fortune. He invested his entire fortune, buying up every grain of rice he could find, expecting prices to climb even higher. But just as he solidified his monopoly, several ships unexpectedly arrived from Peru, their holds overflowing with rice. The market was flooded. The price of rice plummeted, and with it, Joshua Norton's entire financial empire crumbled into dust. He spent years in litigation, trying to void the contracts and salvage his losses, but the courts ruled against him. By 1858, he was bankrupt. The once celebrated merchant vanished from polite society, broken and disillusioned. For over a year, no one knew what became of him. Then, in 1859, he re-emerged, a completely transformed man. On September 17, 1859, Joshua Norton walked into the offices of the San Francisco Bulletin, no longer a broken merchant. He carried not a business proposal, but a document that would alter his destiny and the city's folklore forever. In a small, sparse room, illuminated by a single candle, he had penned his new reality, his mind finding order in a new identity. The proclamation was concise and absolute, written with the unwavering conviction of a man who believed every word. At the peremptory request of a large majority of the citizens, it began, "I, Joshua Norton, declare myself emperor." He handed the notice to a bewildered editor, his expression serene, as if this was the most logical act in the world. The editor, likely thinking it a grand joke, decided to publish it for the amusement of his readers. The next day, the city awoke to the news. On the pages of the bulletin, a new ruler had been announced. What began as a suspected prank quickly took on a life of its own. Norton was steadfast in his new role. The failed businessman was gone, replaced by Norton I, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. Instead of ridicule, San Francisco reacted with a collective, affectionate smile. They chose to play along with their new emperor. When he entered a theater, the performance would pause as the audience rose to give him a standing ovation. The city's finest restaurants reserved a table for him nightly, accepting his presence as an honor, never presenting a bill. Shopkeepers proudly displayed brass plaques by their doors that read, "By appointment to His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Norton I." He became a subject of fascination for writers. Mark Twain, a young reporter in the city, wrote about him with fondness. When an overzealous police officer once arrested him for vagrancy, public outcry was swift and immense. The chief of police quickly ordered his release, personally apologizing to Norton and establishing a new policy. From then on, police officers would salute Emperor Norton whenever they saw him on his daily patrols. The city had decided that their emperor, sane or not, was a treasure to be protected and cherished. He provided a welcome distraction from the harsh realities of life, a shared story that bound the community together. Emperor Norton took his duties seriously, issuing a stream of decrees aimed at reforming the nation he ruled. One of his first acts was to abolish the U.S. Congress, citing fraud and corruption that obstructed the public will. When Congress ignored his order, he commanded the army to proceed with a suitable force and clear the halls of Congress. Naturally, the army did not comply, but the citizens of San Francisco read his proclamations with great interest and amusement. He also abolished the Democratic and Republican parties, viewing them as divisive forces in his empire. But his most famous decree was a visionary command that would echo far into the future. He ordered the construction of a suspension bridge connecting Oakland and San Francisco, a feat considered impossible at the time. He issued multiple decrees on the matter, frustrated by the city's failure to execute his grand and necessary project. Decades after his passing, his folly would become a reality with the construction of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The emperor's vision, once dismissed as madness, was ultimately vindicated, forever linking his name to the iconic structure. An emperor requires imperial robes, and Joshua Norton's were as unique as his reign. They were a gift from his subjects. His original coat grew shabby over time. Seeing this, officers from the U.S. Army post at the Presidio provided him a new one. It was a blue frock coat with gold-plated epaulets, worn but still dignified, which he accepted with royal grace. His hat was equally distinctive, a beaver hat adorned with a peacock feather, adding a touch of eccentric flair. This uniform was not a costume for a performance. For Norton, it was the genuine attire of his office. He wore it every day as he made his rounds, a walking symbol of the city's tolerance and whimsy. The uniform granted him a unique status. He was outside the normal social order, yet respected by all levels of it. It was a visual pact between him and the city. As long as he wore it, they would honor his imperial title. He was also often accompanied by two stray dogs, Bummer and Lazarus, who became his unofficial imperial companions. This entire ensemble, the man, the uniform, the dogs, created a living, breathing piece of public art for all to enjoy. Beyond the pageantry, Emperor Norton possessed a deep sense of justice and a genuine concern for his subjects. He was known to intervene in disputes, his imperial presence often being enough to calm heated tempers. One of his most legendary acts of courage occurred when an angry mob gathered to menace a group of Chinese immigrants. Anti-Chinese sentiment was high, and the situation was on the verge of becoming dangerous for the targeted individuals. Hearing of the commotion, Emperor Norton arrived on the scene not with force, but with quiet authority. He simply stood between the two groups, his back to the immigrants, and his gaze fixed upon the mob. He began to recite a prayer, his voice calm and steady, shaming the crowd with his peaceful disapproval. Confused and embarrassed by the emperor's strange and dignified intervention, the mob quietly dispersed without incident. He had protected his subjects not with a sword, but with the sheer force of his accepted identity. This event solidified his status not just as a figure of fun, but as the city's moral compass and protector. Lacking a royal treasury, Emperor Norton devised his own solution. He printed his own money. These imperial treasury bonds, or scrip, were issued in denominations ranging from 50 cents to $10. Each note bore his portrait, the seal of his empire, and a promise to pay the bearer with interest in the 1880s. In any other circumstance, this would be worthless paper, but in Norton's San Francisco, it was accepted currency. He used his scrip to pay for his modest needs, his 50-cent-a-day lodging, his meals, and his laundry. Merchants willingly took the notes, partly out of charity, but also because they became popular souvenirs. The value of the currency was not in its promise of future payment, but in the affection the city held for its emperor. He also levied a modest tax of 25 cents per week on businesses, which many owners paid with good humor. This informal economy, built on goodwill, allowed him to live with dignity for over 2 decades without a penny to his name. It was perhaps the most successful currency in history to be backed not by gold, but by pure charisma and public adoration. For 21 years, the reign of Emperor Norton I was a constant, comforting presence in the ever-changing city. But on the evening of January 8, 1880, as he walked to a debate at the Academy of Sciences, the emperor's reign came to an end. At the corner of California and DuPont streets, the elderly monarch suddenly collapsed onto the wet pavement. Passers-by rushed to his side, recognizing their beloved emperor immediately. A carriage was called to take him for care. But it was too late. Before he could be moved, Joshua Norton, Emperor of the United States, passed away. Police searched his room at the Eureka lodging house, expecting to find evidence of hidden wealth. They found none. His worldly possessions consisted of his uniforms, his walking stick, a few hats, and stacks of his imperial bonds. They also found telegrams, seemingly from Emperor Alexander II of Russia and the President of France, though their authenticity was questionable. The man who ruled an empire in his mind and in the hearts of his people died with only a few dollars in his pocket. The initial headline read, "Le roi est mort, the king is dead." San Francisco had lost its monarch. The city that had indulged his fantasy in life chose to honor him magnificently in his final moments. Business leaders, shocked at the idea of a pauper's burial, created a fund for a grand funeral befitting a head of state. An estimated 10,000 people came to view his body as he lay in state, a testament to his universal appeal. His funeral procession was said to be 2 miles long, a final parade through the streets of his beloved empire. The entire city seemed to pause. Businesses closed, flags were lowered, and San Francisco mourned its eccentric, gentle ruler. He was buried in the Masonic cemetery, his grave marked by a simple stone provided by the city he loved. Today, his legacy lives on. He is a celebrated folk hero, a symbol of San Francisco's enduring spirit of individuality. His visionary call for a bridge across the bay stands as a permanent steel and concrete reminder of his foresight. Was he mad, or was he a brilliant satirist, holding a mirror up to the absurdities of power and society? Perhaps it doesn't matter. In the end, Joshua Norton lost a fortune but gained a kingdom, ruling over it with kindness, dignity, and grace.